I actually managed to remember one of my dreams from last night, which is a good thing for me, because I usually forget them as soon as I wake up. I've got a pretty good idea what this dream probably means, but I thought I'd just say it anyway. I've had a lot of very similar dreams in the past, and it's usually that we're having to either leave a hotel or a room or somebody's house, and we're trying to take all our stuff with us and packing it up, and we haven't got enough space in the car, we haven't got enough space in bags, and it all gets very frantic. And as I said, I think I probably know what this is supposed to mean, but I would like to perhaps ask you if you've got any ideas.
Well, it looks as though, again, it's you're looking to make a move. Is that your idea?
I think it was, I'm never quite sure. I think it was perhaps after a holiday, or we are moving houses, but I wasn't sure about it in this particular dream.
Well, again, so you have this one off and on, or what?
Yeah, I have it quite often, yes.
Okay. Well, again, the basic idea is you're trying to take your stuff out of someone's house, but the vehicle isn't big enough. Is that it?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So it's really very simple. In other words, it's kind of like it's demonstrating to you that the real you, but the personal self is very involved. And so this is where you're getting the experience. But the real you wants to move along, but the vehicle that you're putting your stuff in, this is one way to look at it, and there's many ways. You'll get 1,000 viewpoints on this. The vehicle, you need a bigger vehicle according to the experience. In other words, your awareness has to expand so you can take the journey, so you're able to do it. It's kind of like that. See, as your vehicle is bigger, you have more room for all your stuff. And that vehicle is part of the personal consciousness, you see. So again, it's learning to understand that so you can make the move. It's kind of along those lines. So again, this is where you start to look at that personal self and the attitudes. You start to look indifferently towards all the things you've been self-convinced. And this becomes the journey to eventually, and it's a huge journey to start to recognize the true reality life is from what we've been self-convinced about. So again, you're trying to move from one position to another, and this is where you got to kind of figure it out. It's like if you want to take a trip here and you want to go somewhere or you want to move somewhere, and you sit and figure it out. How are we going to do this? We've got all this stuff. We don't have any way to get there, so how do we figure out on how to get there, etc.? It's the same idea, only this deals with your real awareness, positioning yourself in a better position as opposed to where you were before, you see, because you're sitting in a spot within yourself, you might say, and the real awareness wants to get on with it, but you got a lot of baggage, you see? You got a lot of baggage, you got a whole lot of baggage that you got to deal with, and it's not fitting. And so that's all in the personal self and in creation. So it's recognizing, in other words, you start to go through yourself and you start to see the ideas and attitudes, and like we just went over, stories and beliefs and all these things, to get past all these self-proclaimed, almost self-created restrictions, so that you can start to recognize yourself, you see. So that's why it's repeating yourself, because again, for the most part, we stay very comfortable with what we've known, especially as we get older, we become fossilized. And that's tricky. See, children are wonderful. They just are now. They're in the moment. They're not looking at a future. They're not saving for their retirement. They're not looking for, what am I going to do tomorrow, whatever. They're just now. And that's the flexible attitude. So it's not that you just give up everything, but all the experiences that you've went through, now you learn to be more objective about them instead of, just standing in them as your only reality. So this is where you decide to go into the unknown and experience something else besides what you've known, just like Peter's experience, where he was in the little gas chamber and he decided to move outside of it. You see, that's kind of the same idea, moving from one position to another. But really, it's all here and now. This is what's so cool about it, is it's here and now. It's not going anywhere. It's simply recognizing the baggage and the restrictions that we already have, you see? Something along those lines, Gwen.
All right, okay, thanks. It's sort of something I was thinking about myself, but it's nice to have a second opinion as well. I was wondering, because I've had sort of invitations about this mindfulness thing. I've never been. It's supposed to be you think you're in the now and you forget about the past or push the past aside and you don't worry about the future. Would you think this is sort of slightly like the new presentation, or it would help?
The idea is that we don't really, again, you don't have to negate anything. It's kind of like, in a way, this is like we're going through a fantasy here in creation. And it's just like that, but we think it's reality. So in other words, if you can imagine this, it would be like all of a sudden, from your chest, you just gradually pull out and there becomes a book in your hand, you see? And that book is your life story up till now. All of a sudden it appears, just like you'd see in a Disney movie or something. And then you take that book and you put it on the shelf. And so all of a sudden the idea would be that, oh, okay, I'm just going to take everything that I've experienced up to now and I'm just going to put it on the shelf. And if I need it, I'll go over there and I'll grab the book and I'll look through it. But right now, all of a sudden, I don't need it. You see, I want to go on a new adventure. And the future, well, that's what I decided to be, but it's all now. So there's kind of the idea. This is how I see it. But again, it's not negating anything. This is the misunderstanding. Yes, because everything is now. You're always deciding it now. And the future, well, that's going to be what it is. We basically determine, because we're in the personal self with, many others. We got 7, 8 billion or whatever it is on the planet, and we're seeing what they're doing. So in that relationship, even though we're objective to them, we're part of that, and so we're seeing what's being created, and so we're thinking along those lines, because maybe you have a job or something and it's like, okay, well, these people are saving money, or they're investing money, or they're buying real estate, or they're going on trips or whatever. So these are future events, aren't they? And if you look at history up till now, and etc., it's all the same thing. So is it that you have to chase these things or determine a future? Well, of course, you get a view of what's going on. I take a look at what's going on. My focus is always with the is, adamantly, every single moment. It's a nowness, because everything is there. What happens in creation is determined by others and determined by myself each moment with the personal self. So there's kind of an objective view, but again, you are the decider how you're going to figure and sort this out. Now, most people, a lot of people, they don't want to put their past on the shelf. They want to hold that to themselves and carry that because they identify with that. It's like, oh, this is me. I'm the carpenter, or I'm the banker, and I'm good at my job, or I'm the baker or something. See, they want to identify with their experiences, which is fine. They have the right to do that. And as they do that, for the most part, that comes first. And so for them to see the true reality life is, that becomes a hurdle because that comes first. So I put the whole of life, the isness, first. But again, it's learning to be objective, but not negating anything, you see? So you decide how you're going to do that, and that's where the imagination comes in. You see, the imagination works in creation more so than the mind. So we have these, we have creation to deal with, and we have, you might say, objects to deal with. But we have the imagination to supersede anything that is being decided in creation, and also work in creation of a particular. It's learning to understand how this is. And then you have your intuition to gain insight, to eventually recognize your real awareness. So while you're, just like, look at your life up till now, you didn't realize that there was more to you than just your created personal self. Now, little by little, you're discovering it. But again, nothing is negated. See, this is the old ideas. It's like, oh, you shouldn't do that, that's bad. Or, you know, if you want to be spiritual, you got to be a vegan and all these things. These are actually ideas that were disciplines at one time, and now they've actually become control factors, and people use them and market them with them. This is where I don't use any of these things, because again, it's not about that. Just go do what you want to. You figure out your life. You decide how you want to see this, or you don't, etc. So the books and that are references. But, you know, the past is interesting, and in the past is more than just this life. This is what is not seen. It is lifetimes of agreements that are unseen from the personal side. And is it that you want to keep carrying these because you are the sum total, the end result of all those lifetimes you've come through? This is where you gain experience, and you've become who you are at this very moment because of all those lifetimes too, you see? So again, there's a lot more to you, but you decide if you want to continually unconsciously carry those things and be the effect of them unconsciously, or do you want to consciously see what's going on and stand in a better position? This is where I created the idea of UP, universal position, where you decide a real position with the whole of life, you see? And it's all up to you. So what I'm providing here is options for people, but there's no negating anything involved, you see? But it's all now. That's the simple part of it. It's now. But the best part of the nowness is when you recognize the isness. That supersedes all of that, because the now that we're referring to is mainly in our personal sense. This is how we see it, you know, like Eckhart Tolle and others like that. And that's fine. And they refer to it like the spiritual sense or the gods or whatever. Again, that's their now, which is now in creation. The isness is the whole of life. The real universe is the real you, that relationship. And you decide to recognize that and stand real in that. That becomes UP more so. And so you have all these references. Okay? So that's one way to say it, young lady.
Okay, thanks. I've got another question, which I'm sure most, if not all, of the people listening will know, but I thought I'd ask it anyway. I've been reading book 1. I haven't really got very far because I'm a slow reader. It seems, from what I've read, that there are 5 different bodies on different levels. But I was thinking or wondering if when people dream, they go to these different levels. It sounds a bit silly, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And if there's a version of them already there, does the version that is dreaming and going into that, do they combine or do they not meet each other?
Well, it just depends upon, every moment you're making a choice. And so it's just like you going in the kitchen and you wanting to make something. Maybe you want to make a cup of tea. And maybe it's green tea, so you boil the water and you put the tea in, and voila, it's done. But then all of a sudden you decide, oh, gee, I want to bake a cake. But I want to bake a special cake for this occasion. So, it's got 10 ingredients. And so it's like that too, as this is where you start to recognize the personal self and the various bodies, because they're all here and now. So it's like this. So your physical body, just like Paul described, is basically your five senses: hearing, seeing, touch, taste, smell, etc. That's basically the physical body. It's physical. It's solid. Then you have your astral body, which is your sensations, your feelings, the personal love idea, and all these ideas around the emotional body is what it is. It's a particular, these are your faculties is what they are. And you're using them all the time. Then your causal body is your memory, okay? And in other places in the world, these bodies may be called something else, doesn't matter. And then you have your mental or your mind body, which is like your computer. It's just a storehouse at all it is. You have experiences. You, the real you, creates ideas and scenarios, and you file them in there just like a computer, just like if you were to be on a Word document, you start writing something, and then you just put it in the computer. That's like your mind is what it is, okay? And so, but people think it's like, oh, you have a great mind and all this, and they think the mind is alive. The mind is not alive, and the brain is not alive. It's just a piece of goo. It's just a physical thing. It's a receiver is all it is. The real you operates everything. And then you have your etheric body, which is your intuition, okay? And that is the closest to the real you. And so this is where you gain insight, etc. And this is the body that like psychics and seers use. But for the most part, they only utilize their intuition or their insight, or they call them empaths. Same idea, on a personal level for the most part. But there are those that can see more with this. And then through that, when the individual starts to recognize that particular position within themselves, they can learn to gain insight to better recognize themselves. But it's going back and forth with these five bodies and the experiences that you decide. Now, for the most part, most people just decide something. It's like, oh, I want this, or I want to go here, I want to go to the movies, or I want. It's chasing things, and it's like, oh, let's go have fun at the beach. But it's not consciously taking a look at the decisions that are made until something usually happens, and usually it's like, oh, gee, I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings, or, oh, I crashed the car and I should have watched, I went through that red light or something like that. See, otherwise it's kind of chasing, usually having fun or whatever, and you just keep going. This is where children, you see, they're very free and easy, but at the same time, they're not recognizing their position. This is why we're here. So they become older. As we become older, we become conditioned accordingly to however we're brought up. But again, it's the choice. You start to recognize within yourself how, because it is the real you. So when you're doing something physical, you're operating the physical body, you see. It's like a person on one of those big backhoes where he's trenching something, but he's got several different levers to, make the backhoe do this or that, go up and down, twirl around, or a forklift or whatever. You're the operator. And then when something good, bad, or indifferent or whatever, or the love idea comes into your life, you use the emotional body. Or then you want to think of something that you went through, or you're trying to remember someone's phone number, you're using your memory body, or you're looking at your files in the mind body. See, you, the real you, is operating this. Now, when you go to the real side, you're getting more of an objective view from the personal self that you've created here that envelops all these bodies as to what's going on, because there's many things going on. Just like, your computer, you're looking at the screen, but your computer is operating through so many systems to make that image, just your image on your desktop, appear that you don't see, you see? And so now you're going to the real side, like in the movie The Matrix. You're going to the real side of the Matrix. You're seeing everything that supports the Matrix. Now you're starting to discover everything that has supported your personal self and what you've decided. And yes, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. And at first, it's kind of like one of these cyberspace, outer space movies to where you got so much stuff going on, you almost can't figure nothing out. But you learn eventually to focus to where it's all manageable. But in the meantime, yes, we've gone through so many experiences. We've got our attention and we've got stuff all over creation that we've created, that we relate to, etc. And so for the most part, all these things take our attention. And so there's no real intent there to recognize the personal self. But now all of a sudden you've come across this. This starts to give you the hint that there's more. So again, you decide your journey, and this is where the guidance comes in. As you decide, just like when you were young with your parents, you decided, well, gee, Mommy, can we go to the park? Well, you were too young, so your parents said, sure, well, I'll take you to the park. They were your guides, you see? They didn't live your life or your experience, or you didn't, for the most part, you didn't sit there and beg them for more money. It's like, well, I want money if I go to the park, Mom. It's like, no, that's not the idea. The idea is that they were your guide, and this is how the real guides are. When they present the material, like I've presented the material here as a reference for you, you decide the journey, and they're going to guide you accordingly so that you're safe on this journey and you get the best understanding from what you're deciding, you see? It becomes a whole lot more, but eventually, as you really study, it's like anything. It's like studying to be a doctor. Well, there's a whole lot to it. And even when you're the doctor and went through 10 years, plus all your schooling up to that point of medical school, you're still learning, you see. So now you're dealing with the whole of life, which is beyond anything in creation. So, yeah, it's a huge journey to decide, and this is why we only have a few people here, because it's just way too big for most people to even grasp a little bit of it. So yeah, you're doing a lot of things that you decide how you're going to wake up to it.
Okay, thanks very much for that.
Yeah, basically, I was just I was wondering about. You say we're all beings of light in different body types. Well, and we all come from the is. We're all reflections of the all is. Well, I was just wondering how it like worked, how it would like, there's like, obviously we've been through loads of different thousands of different body forms, and did it go out? Is it like soul groups? Did it go out and say, right, you're going to start like you're going to start as a plant, and you're going to start as an animal, and like work through, and then like, well, we've eventually become human body type, and then you've got others life throughout the universe. That's is it they like the reptilians and the drakes and the Pleiadians and all these different life? Is it like they reach the pinnacle of where they get before they progress onto the is, or will they have to go through more body types, if you see what I'm saying?
Well, again, just look at it like a course, like any course you take in school, or like boot camp in the military. You start off square one, and yes, as the individual comes in creation, they start off with, just playing around with certain body types and go through them pretty fast. It's like a fly. How long does a fly live? A couple days, a week, whatever. You go through these body types pretty fast to get the experience. You're gaining experience. Imagine yourself as a fly. We'll just use a fly before we go to amoeba and all that. That's pretty like nothing, but there's an experience there. But you're buzzing around, etc. Now, just because you're in the fly body doesn't mean you have recognition, but you're gaining some kind of experience. You have that experience there. It is there, all right? And so as you keep going through these various bodies, here's the idea. The isness life is always now. And so it's at this very moment that you're discovering what this isness is. So whatever body types that you've developed and come through, like us as so-called humans and other types of people or whatever race, or the aliens and reptilians and whatever, they've excuse me, they've developed themselves into those body types because, again, at some point, it's like the movie The Lord of the Rings. You see how Gollum was. He was a character like in Hobbitville, but when he got the ring, all of a sudden he started to transform because all of a sudden it became all about the power of the ring. So the power obsessed him, and this is what is happening to these different body types and how strange and weird they are in their attitudes. And just like Orion with Syria for a 10,000-year war that we've, interceded here with them lately, and now they've got a different attitude. So what has come about is that right now this is being presented. So whatever body type you're in, this is what it is now. But yes, you've come through all those things, you see. So it's not that the reptilians in that are going to go through other body types. They will, but if they wake up and see what we're presenting, then it won't matter the body type, because eventually they'll recognize their real awareness and they can supersede the body type. So this is where everything is fine, but it's all about attitude and recognition right now. Otherwise, if they don't pay attention, then yes, they will go into worse body types. It'll become worse for them, just like Gollum in The Lord of the Rings. It'll get worse and worse and worse, and they'll continually self-destruct, and the body types will get worse and worse until they become like crocodiles or slugs in the water, whatever it is, because of their consciousness, you see. But they have the opportunity now to wake up, and it doesn't matter about the body type. What matters is recognizing that you are a free being of real light, and then putting your attention there, deciding that universal position, and superseding all the experience you've gone through to get to this point. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. Another question, might sound a bit daft. It's like your family and your friends and that, and you might meet someone for the first time and you click instantly, and you say, oh, it seems like I've known you all my life and stuff like that. Is it did we know them in previous lifetimes, and family and stuff, you're born to your mum and your dad and you got your siblings and that? Is it do you make an agreement with them in the astral to be family with them, or is it just something that happens, or is it just something you pick when how does that work?
Well,
or
again,
if it does work.
Yeah, I get the idea. And again, yes, just imagine, you've gone through lifetimes, you've met others. We all meet each other, so we bump into them. It can start off with the two flies. You bump into another fly, and maybe there's a relationship there, and you create other little flies, okay? And it can go as far back as that when you were a fly. And since then, you decide, you see, this is where we're all, the freedom we have in life is the freedom of choice while we're in creation, or all of life. It's freedom of choice. But that isn't real freedom. We have freedom of choice. So people are thinking, oh, well, I have freedom. And, like in the United States here, you can drive, you can buy a car, you can drive on the road, you can go to the store you want. So people are thinking, oh, we have freedom. No, that's kind of a disguise, and it's marketed to people. Well, you can go and do all these things, you see. It's kind of like when you're in a prison cell. Yeah, you can walk back and forth, and it's like, oh, gee, I have freedom to walk back and forth. No, that's not freedom, all right? It's your real awareness is real freedom. And actually, it's better than the idea of freedom or real freedom. And so, yes, you've been with certain individuals, like everybody has, and so we all gain friends and acquaintances, and we go back and forth. So let's say you're the parents this lifetime, and you have children. Well, as you get older, of course, the basic idea is the children take care of the parents, etc. So, you have these emotional attachments and ideas to that. So when you pass on, for the most part, you're going to want to come back with those children. So you're going to come back basically as their children, if they'll have children. Now, if they don't have children, let's say some people don't, all of a sudden you're in the astral world going, well, gee, what the heck? Aren't they ever going to have children? Can I come back? So then you start looking around. It's like, okay, well, let me try Bob over there, the neighbor, or Susie or whatever. Maybe I can come through them and then, meet my family again and be friends with them. Again, you see the attitudes you have, and that's what draws you back. Now, if you're a particular person, all of a sudden you become rather destructive, etc., that becomes the difference. This is where, just like here, the police step in or the lords of karma step in, and then you're put in certain purgatories for a while to get your attitude adjusted. That's where it becomes a little bit different, you see? And you may not reincarnate, but then all of a sudden you don't have a choice after that to which body you want to reincarnate. They're going to tell you, just like they do in purgatory, they're going to tell you which body that you got to go back into to learn certain lessons, you see?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so it pays to become aware of the whole of life. Otherwise, you stay the effect of all these ideas. And look at the people around you, just as an experiment, constantly, people that you meet and talk to, objectively, look at their attitudes and how self-convinced they are about certain things that they think, oh, well, I like this, and this is what I'm doing, and this is where I'm going. Well, you see what they're deciding, right?
Yeah, I've been looking at stuff objectively a lot recently, reading your books and that, and it's a big wake up when you do.
It is a big wake up, because you see, just especially religious people. We'll just use them. We'll pick on them a little bit. They're very emphatic. It's like, well, I believe in God and I believe that Jesus will save us, whatever. Well, again, that's an idea, and it's according to, the idea and its relationship, where that's where they're going to place themselves. And so it's basically not going to come out like they think it is so much of the time, because, again, it's just an idea. And where is that idea? So they'll just pop into the astral plane. It's kind of like getting off a bus and thinking that, I'm taking this bus ride and I'll get off this bus and all of a sudden I'll be where I want to be. But all of a sudden they get off the bus and they don't know where they're at, because all of a sudden that idea they had in their mind, it doesn't relate to the reality of the situation they're in.
Yeah, scary.
This is where we scare ourselves, yeah.
Yeah. Another question. Do you think we'll ever have disclosure? I personally don't.
Disclosure, okay, and so in reference, how would you say that?
Define. The ET disclosure.
Oh, the ET disclosure. So yeah. What are you asking?
Well, just do you ever think the powers that be will ever come out and say that they are ETs and it's all being manipulated? And I don't personally.
Well, it's a combination
of people keep talking about it.
Yeah, well, again, that's the masses, isn't it? So we're listening to, what people say, or the media is telling you that, or this or that. So, but you decide. I look at the world, I see what it's doing, but I focus on the is, because everything will be revealed through that. And what the world does, those are personal choices. And again, a lot of these things are stories, but, some can pertain to something, some pertains to this or that. It's if you want to chase the rabbit down the hole to find out what's going on, you see? That's up to you.
Yeah, thank you.